No, I'm not going to. Listen, I'm not going to vote for you, Kamala. Stop calling me. I'm not doing it. I like my money. I like kids. I like babies. I like freedom. I like my... Bye. Sorry. Maybe you're like me and you're getting that call from Kamala Harris because you're a black man and she wants your vote. Yeah, just tell her no. She calls back quite often, but she gets used to it. In a little bit, if you vote for Trump, you won't have to be dealing with her calls anymore. I just wanted you to know that. I didn't say I was. I'm just saying I'd be happy not dealing with her calls anymore. So you're here at the beginning of the show. We've already started, but I wanted to remind you before we get to the show and we get to this lovely clip that you're going to watch before the show, that the conference is coming up in 15 days. That's right, in 2 weeks. You can go to prodigalamerica.com and you can register your friends, your family, and your old crazy uncle, and even Kamala Harris. That's right. I don't want to see Tim Walz there. He's not. No, I had enough of him. Minnesota guy. So why don't you go to prodigalamerica.com, sign up for the conference while you watch this lovely piece of content that you also can enjoy the rest of it inside of the Pub TV app, which you should have. It's free. It's a great deal. It's even, you know what? We don't even try and hassle you like Kamala Harris does. No. We give you stuff for free. Enjoy the clip. Register for the conference. We'll talk to you in a second.
I gave Gabe some title for this talk a number of weeks ago, but as everyone knows, speakers don't really know what they're going to talk about until right before they give their talks. So if there's some title in your program, I apologize. That probably would have been a great talk, but it's not the one I'm going to give. The title of this talk is The Kindness of Six-Day Creation. The Kindness of Six-Day Creation. I want to talk about the kindness of creationism and the cruelty of theistic evolution, and how these tendencies impact society and culture and politics. My basic thesis is that the further Christians and the culture in which Christians inhabit, the further they get away from a clear understanding of God's sovereign, personal creation of all things in 6 days, just like Genesis 1 says, the further we get away from that, the further we get from the kindness of God. And therefore, the less kind we and our world will be, and the more cruel it will become. The kindness of autonomous man, the so-called kindness of autonomous man, man divorced from God's word, is cruel. And the creative sovereignty of God, the absolute exhaustive authority that spoke the worlds into existence and holds them in their existence, that personal exhaustive sovereignty is more gracious than we can ever imagine. The origin of kindness, like all things, is in the Creator God and in His creation of all things. You cannot have true kindness apart from the kindness of the Creator. And however you believe this world came to be, that will be the cornerstone of your paradigm for what kindness actually is. Either we will have the kindness of God found in His Word, and it will be that which drives our culture, which drives our politics, or else we will have the cruelty of man, making it up as he goes along, crushing the weak and the innocent, often all in the name of science and freedom and being nice. So I want to begin by talking about the cruelty of theistic evolution. Perhaps one of the most appalling things about 2020 and the so-called COVID pandemic was the collusion of so many major evangelical Christian leaders with Francis Collins, the then director of the National Institute for Health, the NIH. Our friend Megan Basham chronicled this complicity in great detail in an article published by the Daily Wire back in February 2022, from which I'm drawing extensively for these comments. For example, she notes that Tim Keller interviewed Francis Collins, then the director of the NIH, in May 2020, which included a digression where Keller and Collins agreed that John MacArthur's church reopening represented the, quote, bad and ugly of Christian responses to the virus. In November 2020, Rick Warren hosted a special broadcast with Francis Collins in which they together lamented Christians who questioned the efficacy of masks. Rick Warren said, "Wearing a mask is the great commandment, love your neighbor as yourself," before going on to argue that religious leaders have an obligation to convince their people to accept government narratives and mandates. When Ed Stetzer interviewed Francis Collins in 2021, pastors were again exhorted to exert their authority to get their congregations vaccinated, to wear masks, and to comply with the dominant mainstream narrative. Stetzer's Billy Graham Center formally partnered with the NIH and the CDC to encourage churches to comply with government COVID measures. While Anthony Fauci championed the mainstream dominant narrative in secular news outlets, Francis Collins was using his evangelical testimony to preach so-called science to believers. It later came out that Francis Collins had written Anthony Fauci a number of emails about what was going on, and in particular, sent a particular email to Fauci asking for a quick and devastating published takedown of the Great Barrington Declaration. Some of you may remember that. It was co-authored by our friend Dr. Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford, which was a worldwide consortium of scientists and virologists raising questions about the dominant narrative that was supported shutdowns and vaccines and masks and so on. In the Great Barrington Declaration, instead argued for the efficacy of herd immunity for most healthy individuals, for reopening businesses and schools, and targeted care for vulnerable populations. Emails have surfaced with Collins and Fauci mocking these ideas. Meanwhile, the Gospel Coalition was also running articles citing Francis Collins as a respected authority. So how did Francis Collins become such an evangelical hero? Well, in 2007, Francis Collins wrote a book called The Language of God. A scientist presents evidence for belief. And apparently most of the evangelical world collectively wet their pants with worldly lust. Finally, one of the high priests of Darwinism has abandoned atheism and come out as an evangelical Christian. And Collins wasn't just any atheist, any scientist, but he was one of the chief architects of the Human Genome Project, mapping and sequencing the base pairs of human DNA. And as the book's description puts it breathlessly, an instant bestseller from Templeton Prize-winning author Francis S. Collins, The Language of God provides the best arguments for the integration of faith and logic since C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity. And how did Collins in that book propose to integrate faith and reason and science? Theistic evolution. Plastered on the front of the paperback, I looked at it on Amazon a couple days ago. The New York Times book review is quoted as proclaiming, quote, "It lets non-church goers consider spiritual questions without feeling awkward." That's your problem. The book argues at length that Genesis is allegorical. The creation narrative should not be read as a literal historic narrative. Collins likewise dismisses intelligent design and champions theistic evolution, or what he prefers to call biologos. Biologos, which became the name of the organization that Collins founded the same year, dedicated to, quote, faith and science working hand in hand. What does that mean?
I don't really like working.
I only work remotely.
I'm gonna need 8 weeks of paid vacation, maybe 12.
I take a lot of breaks. I feel more mentally healthy.
I'm gonna need a priority parking space.
Do you have non-dairy options in your coffee bar? Do you have soy? Do you have a decaf, half-calf kind of thing? Interviews are so boring.
How's your game?
Do I need to call my dad? You work for him, you know.
You guys are so intense. Like, do you always work this hard?
You don't run a daycare, you run a business. That's why you need redballoon.work.
I think you need me more than I need you.
Men are all the rage this election. You know, I don't normally do this, but my white brothers, I'm going to make you jealous right now. Kamala Harris has written me a love letter, according to some people.
Harris.
Kamala.
Is a matriarchy
I
problem?
got her,
Is there a
mama.
real matriarchy
I
problem in
don't
the
want
black
it,
community?
mama. I got it, mama. Welcome to CrossPolitic. I'm the Gabe and Knox, Gabe and Waterboy, and Pastor Toby is doing much better things, and he doesn't have to be here for this show. Pastor Toby, we hope you're
Take
enjoying
care
your
of the fam.
vacation. So,
Want to start reading the Puritans?
Yes.
Don't know where to begin. Kamala, maybe we should send her some.
definitely send her some Puritans.
Richard Baxter. Oh, man. Puritan treasures for today from Reformation Heritage Books makes the riches of these godly writers of old accessible for the modern reader. With updated language and helpful introductions, these classic works from John Owen, Jeremiah Burroughs, and more are the perfect starting point for the curious reader. Learn more about Puritan treasures today. Go to heritagebooks.org. Don't forget, it's org, not com. I almost said .com naturally. .org, heritagebooks.org/Puritan treasures. Go to / go right to the landing page. And actually, you can use CrossPolitic code FLF or 10% off. FLF, just fight, laugh, feast off your order. And that's heritagebooks.org/Puritan treasures, coupon FLF.
Our producers are having a tough time back there. They're just loud and noisy.
Are they?
What is going on? You guys all right back there? If the show goes away, you guys, something's going on back there.
It's our producers, though. So, I think this campaign, first of all, this presidential election is the first election that's being impacted by podcast culture.
Huh.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, they're definitely driving it. No,
it's huge.
It's everywhere. I just saw that Trump is probably going to.
Daddy, Joe Rogan. Trump's going to go on Joe Rogan.
From what I hear, Kamala's talking about potentially going on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I want her unscripted. I got to say, by the way,
for 3 hours. On Joe Rogan.
The clips. People, the clips.
I know.
The only problem is that how much testosterone you're going to have to lose to give 3 hours.
We'll have our producers watch that.
I just want the highlights of the clips of it. But I mean,
Just
you're right.
the
The podcast world really is proving that they are the most important people in this narrative. If you're going to reach certain clicks and bases of people, I don't think we're all. This is still one of the things that makes the Super Bowl probably the best buy of all ad buys
because
ever.
100 million people watch it.
Exactly. At one time, all together. And so it's the only corporate experience at a large scale that we have left in America.
But think about it. I mean, we started CrossPolitic in 2016.
Yep.
And no presidents were talking about podcasts. No presidents were going on podcasts. Not even
8 years ago, a whole different world.
And Kamala, she's done 5 interviews? 4?
I don't know, but she's out there.
But one of them was a podcast. Call Her Daddy.
Yep.
Right?
Well, she did more than that. She did, well, yeah. I mean, it depends on.
Did you do some other podcasts?
You do Howard Stern. That's like
kind of a podcast,
but it's
kind of,
not. So kind of.
So, I mean, I think I'm excited kind of watching this election. I'm excited about, the future of podcasting, just knowing that we knew this for a long time. Like, this is media 2.0.
Yep.
But now seeing these presidents get it. Yeah. Be like, you got to go on
well,
podcasts.
It won't just be presidents anymore. Everybody's going to be doing podcasts at a whole new level.
That's right. Secondly, this election, I mean, the turn that has taken in the last couple of weeks is that both presidential candidates, Kamala and Trump, are going hard after men.
Yeah.
And Kamala particularly is going hard after the church. She's even been talking about the Catholic Church, and she's
really,
she which is surprising. And of course, last week she was in a number of pulpits in the church.
Who?
Preaching or whatever.
Who?
I forget. It's on my Twitter there, but yeah.
No.
So it's like there's a churn. No talking about feminism. No talking about women, except for women's rights. That's Kamala will bring that up, women's rights and everything. So there was
They're going after bases.
They're going after the bases. And then even like so much so where Kamala's releasing this kind of ad.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
And I'm man enough. I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500, then braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast. I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women. I'm not afraid of women. I'm not afraid of women.
They want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies.
Yeah, you are.
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president? Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement. Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions. Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women. Or one of those pants books that the sisters like. I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It sucked. Not worth it. I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse. I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually. Good Will Hunting.
You look like it.
Yeah.
And Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful. That's not how my mama raised me. I love women. I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge. And I'm man enough to help them win.
I wonder what woman wrote that ad.
I know. Told them all what to say. Here's your lines.
Here's what's
your
so,
lines.
So I was watching it, and I've seen that numerous times, and first it made me sick, and now it's really funny because there isn't one environment that the guys who were talking were in who would actually talk like that in those environments.
I know.
Like
or sit like that.
Or sit.
I took the picture of the dude on the truck, and I tweeted it out, and it went pretty far. I forget what I said, but it's something like, no man sits like this on a cab.
Like, it tells you though how disconnected they really are from men.
Yeah.
Because this ad right here should have been on an SNL skit.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. It favors. It's like something from an SNL skit.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
This is all the stuff that the guys in the barbershop or guys who are actually working on cars or mechanics be laughing at. Do you see that SNL skit? Talk about I'm a man. I'm voting for a woman.
Imagine if you took this video and just played it on SNL.
Yeah, and everybody would think it's a joke.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Yeah.
No context.
But you know what? It's interesting because they probably put a lot of money behind it.
Yeah.
They aren't connected at all with men. And it shows.
And half of them don't really look like a man.
But
they just don't look. They look a little feminine, or they look a little awkward sitting on the cab or whatever.
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out, like, they're not going after a certain type of man. They're going after the C guys or the beta guys that might actually
vote for Kamala.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Because they're connected to a larger group of men, and they're like, I'm voting with you guys.
Yeah.
But
kind of
exactly.
Well, the thing watching the video is like, I'm man enough. I'm not afraid of women. I'm not afraid of women. That kind of thing. And
ain't no man afraid of a woman.
Well, I was just thinking,
it's just bottom line.
I mean, that's
we actually like women.
We do.
Men really like women a lot.
Yeah, a lot of men like a lot of women.
We do.
A lot, yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, but even then, that's not where I would draw the fear line. I'm not afraid of women. I'll draw it with I want to fear God.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to like the thought of me fearing a woman doesn't even enter into my head.
Well, but this is where a man knows what a woman is for. Right.
Yeah.
He knows that she's beautiful. He knows that she's made for beauty.
Yeah.
And he also knows that she doesn't need to be the president of the United States. Mm-hmm. He also knows that she doesn't need to be a pastor of a church.
Right.
That she doesn't need to be a pilot in an airplane fighting, on the front lines of our military.
Yeah.
Like because we know the value of a woman. Yeah. We know what a woman is for. And so we're not going to put her out there. That's what a real man knows.
Right.
And so he's not going to put a woman at the head of the state where she can actually potentially get shot and killed because she's way too valuable for that.
Yeah. But notice that nothing in this campaign is about truth. Nothing in Kamala's campaign is about truth. In fact, half her answers are some sort of narrative story, conversation. Yeah. And this commercial, there's no hint of, we'll get into this later, but like, what is a man?
Yeah, they don't have that's the metaphysics of what we're talking about. One of the things too so it's not just Kamala, you also have Trump, who is fighting for men as well. And it looks like the way that the people are talking about it looks like Trump might actually get a large swath of black male voters this time around.
Yeah.
You know,
Uh-huh.
and it's something about, I don't know, maybe it's something about the fact when a guy gets shot in his head
Uh-huh.
and he stands up
Yeah.
and he says fight, that kind of just
The black dudes are like,
I mean,
I'm voting for that guy.
You think about the last time you had a shot of testosterone to your system visually. Like you haven't really, it's been a long time since, because everything's been emasculated.
Yeah.
And when you see that, you're like, whoa, I forgot what that felt like.
Yeah, I'd say the last one is maybe the Bulls, Jazz,
Oh,
final
dude.
champion. You know
Well,
what I'm saying?
it actually used to
Jordan
float
crossed
around
over. He didn't
everywhere.
push off on Russell.
I don't care. I don't care. Nah, but I mean, it actually used to be everywhere. It wasn't just isolated one place. So when you see it somewhere, it really does resonate with you.
Yeah.
So he's fighting for men too, in just a different way. And one of the things that people have to remember is like when you're talking about this battle, this fight, we'll talk about Kamala's love letter to black men here in just a second. Which, doggone it. But one of the things that is that you're always submission. When you talk about submitting to authorities, there's children don't necessarily get this. God gives it naturally by the way of marriage. But usually in a husband and a wife situation, a woman's looking at submission and saying, who am I going to submit to that's going to bring me the most amount of human flourishing in my lifetime? Right.
Provide for me.
Yeah,
give me
exactly.
a house,
Exactly.
My kids.
And in this case, since we have voting, we're looking as our leaders. As a man, you're thinking about the same thing too. It's like, okay, who's our leaders that we're going to be with? When you pick at a church, you're doing
Provide
the same
me
thing.
maximum freedom.
Who's going to provide me the maximum amount of freedom to create human flourishing in the things that I have authority over, right?
That's right.
And so when you look at Kamala,
that's good.
Like no man is going to look at her and say, yes, this right here is going to create human flourishing.
Yeah.
You're thinking to yourself, I'm going to have to fix probably half the things that she.
I'm going to have to
do a lot of it. Yeah, there's just no way. So it's not convincing to any man who really is in a position of authority.
So you brought up Kamala wrote a love letter, or Van Jones.
Yeah,
Excuse
it's actually Kamala Harris's policy around her agenda for opportunity for Black America.
But here's Van Jones framing it for us.
Yeah.
Finally, Kamala Harris sent us a love letter. That to you, that might have been a policy document. I read that as a love letter from Kamala Harris to Black men who need some love, Black men who need some respect, Black men who need some concern and some care and consideration. You know, we need some mamala from Kamala, and we got that. We stood on business. We said we wanted to hear something. Everybody else is getting something. What are we going to get?
Wow.
And she came with a love letter of support for our work, our wealth, and our health.
Wow. Policy as a love letter. You got some problems when you're looking at Kamala's policy as a love letter. You know, Knox, one of the questions that this brought up for me was it seems to me that there's been a strong presence of kind of matriarchy in the Black community. Black families, like the mom kind of runs the family. And it seems, I mean, I guess that's kind of true generally speaking.
Well, it's true with anybody.
Kind of, a masculine and then masculinity to the Black community, you know, athletic, strong, stuff like that.
Yeah. But I think anytime you have a family or a society where a culture where men aren't with their wives and or not just abdicating, they're just not married to the children's mother. When you don't have that, then you're going to have somebody who has to fill a vacuum. So what you end up getting is women who try to fill the role and responsibility of being a man of the house. And so you get a matriarchal culture. So I can tell you, growing up, I can't think of, now I had men around, but then, you know, somebody who talks about this really well. Oh, what was the name of the book? It was George Gilder. On his book on was it sex? I think it was.
Yeah. If I wasn't feeling well, I would probably have a clear mind
right now.
I
have to find it. Hit me up on Twitter. I'll get it for you. But he talked about even the overhyped masculine culture, supposedly that was inside of Black culture that we see that comes out from the jazz movement, is really an effeminate culture because it has to overdo everything in order to try and get a position of authority and say I'm in charge. Right. And so it overreacts. So you have that, but it's funny right now. Who is it? Men Apart. You have the same thing happening in white culture, which the Moynihan report was saying this is going to happen to American culture if we don't solve the problem inside of Black culture with the welfare system and everything going there too. So it's
60s,
there.
70s.
It's there. It's there. I was just thinking that the Black culture has been kind of the test demo for a lot of the stuff that we see in society right now.
And especially like it'd be interesting. I don't know Van Jones' personal life. I know he's a pretty radical leftist. But it's interesting how ready and willing he is to have our government be mama.
Yeah.
And if there's anything like we've emphasized on our show over the years is like, you don't want the government being your dad. You don't want the government being your mom. They make a horrible mom. They make a horrible dad. And all that's going to do is turn into some sort of matriarchal enslavement is really what it's going to be in the end. And so Kamala kind of in this, I think Van Jones was referencing this.
Yes.
So
I think this was referencing.
This is what he's referencing. So Kamala comes out with this policy, which was Van Jones's love letter to Van Jones.
By the way, this is just with anybody. If you're going to, anytime a government official starts writing you letters based around your identity markers, you should just it's a red flag. First of all, it's not their responsibility. They are trying to be your parents. And by the way, the government makes horrible parents. The government makes horrible everything
horrible
because
mom.
the government itself is a beast. And when you turn over your parental duties to the government, you get raised by a beast. And guess what people act like? They act like beasts. So there's nothing here that's going to create human flourishing, because politics himself shouldn't be around your identity markers of sex and skin tones and whatever else you want to throw in there. It should be around the idea of morality. Is this right to treat a human like this? Is it wrong to treat a human like this? Are you human? Then these things definitely apply to you. But trying to make it any other way, that God has not made it so that's the way that we judge righteousness of a skill. Because if she, by the way, this is coming from a lawyer. By the way, and another thing, I just want to do the Biden. By the way, and another thing, no, but this is coming from a lawyer who should know that the scales of justice.
That's right.
Justice is blind.
Yep.
And so she should know that, and to create something like this tells you she does not plan on doing anything justly.
Yeah, our audience needs to know, well, this is Van Jones's love letter. So Kamala is going to create an opportunity agenda for black men. The first thing on her list is provide 1 million loans.
Can I stop right there real quick?
Yep.
I just want to stop. I just want to know how we're going to identify these black men.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
like
let's say,
black,
so we're just looking at the skin and it's like, okay, you're third, or you're mixed,
Yep.
or you're 3 generations removed. I just want to know how we're going to identify black men, because if this is from her, it just says black.
Yeah.
It's like African black,
She don't need to
American
find
black,
that. She don't need to find that. Yeah.
European black. Which
Provide
black?
1 million loans. What's a loan?
A loan is something you have to pay back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to just.
You're indebted to that lender. Like she's going to provide 1 million enslaving loans.
But no.
1 million.
No.
enslaving loans
Read the next word.
that are fully forgivable. Up to 20K. So what you do is you take out a $300,000 loan and then use it all up, or you just take a $20,000 loan. That's it. You don't have to, I did the math wrong. I did the math backwards. Take a $20,000 loan out and it's forgivable.
See, Gabe, I got 7 kids. There's 9 of us in my family. We're gonna be all right.
Each.
We're gonna be all right. We're just gonna take.
Some of them are ladies.
And then if you can identify as well, that's true. Doggone it. Well, they can identify as men.
She's boxing your wife out.
They can identify.
I didn't realize that women aren't allowed to apply for this.
Yeah, they can identify as men.
They can probably work it out.
We'll figure it out.
Secondly, number 2, support education, training, and mentorship programs that lead to good-paying jobs for black men, including pathways to become teachers. This stuff has been. I worked in the college world for 12 years. And they've been saying this stuff in education for a long time. Oh, we need to do a better job, creating education, training, and mentorship programs for the black community.
Yeah, I've seen that.
We've been doing this for throwing millions and billions of dollars at that for years. So she's going to fix it. Protect cryptocurrency investments. This is interesting to me. Protect cryptocurrency investments so black men who make them know their money is safe.
So
black men are idiots.
What?
She's going to protect their investments. Like, we need to. You can't. We're going to limit risk from black men.
She can't protect us.
Black men can't take risks.
She can't protect us from on the border. I don't know how. No black man is looking at this being like, yes. Okay, maybe Van Jones. Nobody's looking at yes. Like everything that she says she's going to do, like she's had 4 years to do.
But notice when
everybody's been able to say like, yeah. And notice when it's coming. Oh, it's right before an election. Right, it's right before an election. This is all bait, and this is a lie.
But notice what she's doing here is she's taking away risk from black men. Like to take away risk,
of course, and creating
that's dehumanizing.
But again, how are we going? So
you're putting them in a playground.
When I go make my investments inside of cryptocurrency, are they going to ask me if I'm black or not?
Yeah, I don't even.
I'm just. How does this even?
But
work?
It's funny. I think she put that in because Trump's pushing cryptocurrency.
Well, because
that's to me the way she put that in there. Number 4, launch a national health initiative focusing on the illness that disproportionately impact Black men. What was the 1920s, 30s
It was
experiment?
Yeah. You're talking about the
Booker, Tuskegee Institute.
Tuskegee experiment.
The experiment, yeah. Where they
well, just look at COVID.
Yeah.
That didn't work out, so I don't think they did such a good.
I need the government to help me with my health.
This is okay. Look at this last one. Okay, I'm a little torn on the last one.
I didn't even see this last one.
Legalize recreational marijuana and create opportunities for Black Americans to succeed in this new industry.
She's going to open up the door for them to own pot shops.
Well,
yeah, I agree.
First of all, I don't think the government should be inside of drugs.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't think that should be their lane. That's not what they're supposed to. That's the area for the family and for the church, I believe, to work inside of those categories and that government. But this has to be one of the most racist lists I've seen in a long time.
Right.
And it's racist because it's isolated. It's doing exactly what we were trying not to do, right? To judge people by their skin color, but more so the content. Like, this is not a meritocracy anymore.
Yeah, right.
Whenever your federal government is saying we're going to isolate a particular group of people, well, what stops another person from coming there and saying, well, all the white men or all the purple man, or there is and it doesn't bode well for a nation because it's not producing human flourishing.
Right.
It's pure segregation.
Yep.
It's pure segregation. And the only way to implement things like that is to become more and more segregated. All this is just changing the name on the doorpost from whites only to blacks area.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is all this is. And it doesn't benefit us.
Yeah.
And it was funny because segregation didn't benefit us either. We were doing pretty good before segregation.
Be resegregated again?
But she wants the vote. Now look at it, give you her vote. And do you think you're going to flourish underneath that? Of course you won't.
Right. So Trump released an ad. And before I get to this ad, I got a plug to read. But Trump released this ad aimed at Kamala about the whole transgender push that she's focused on. You know, of course, this conversation gets into what is a man, what is a woman, and all that stuff. But first, my ad already got messed up. America has strayed far from God, the Father. She has fallen into a pit of sexual perversion, abortion, and corrupt welfare state, swelling with bureaucratic blood, greed, and tyranny. I might even wrote this ad. Join us in the fight to bring prodigal America to repentance at the Fight, Laugh, Feast conference on October 31st through November 2nd in Fort Worth, Texas. We're 15 days away. If you heard Knox's entrance opening to this whole show, we're 15 days away. As always, we'll have good food, beer, and even better fellowship. Get your tickets at prodigalamerica.com. And our live show, the topic of our live show, I'm just naming it and claiming it because I just don't get feedback from you and Toby on text anymore.
I like to surprise you.
Yeah, I like to surprise you. Topic of our live show that we're going to do at the conference, which is 3 p.m. Saturday afternoon, is Make America Repent Again.
I like
Mara,
Yeah.
Make America Repent Again. Summarizes everything. That's my thing. Do I got 3 ads, guys? You guys give me 3 ads? Yeah, one more. Okay, I'm just gonna read this last one because I get out of the way.
Go ahead.
Get out of the way. Do you find yourself turning on the news and feeling hopeless? Woke agendas, open borders, inflation, the list goes on. There's something you can do. Buy from companies that believe what you believe and what I believe. I guess you and I we're supposed to believe the same thing. We need to stick together now more than ever. And there has been one company willing to stand with you since 2012. Patriot Mobile, who will be at our conference. They actually got a nice big size booth at our conference. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They offer the very best nationwide 4G, 5G, what is it? L whatever.
I don't know. I'm just watching you go through this. Is interesting. Watching you sick do the show is really entertaining.
I'm sick and trying to read ads, so I'm not good at either. On all networks. In fact, they use the same towers as major carriers. Patriot Mobile has service plans to fit any budget, and they're 100% U.S.-based customer service. I love this part. Every time I read this ad, I got to talk about it because I can text my customer service a representative over Patriot Mobile. Love it. Huge for me. I'm deaf in one ear. I can't understand foreign people very well. More importantly, Patriot Mobile shares your values and supports organizations fighting for religious freedom, your constitutional rights, the sanctity of life, and our veterans and first responder heroes. Switch to Patriot Mobile now and get free activation with these people. You got to mention our name, though. Free activation with the offer code CrossPolitic. Go to patriotmobile.com/CrossPolitic and use the promotion code CrossPolitic. All capitalized. I think you got to put all capitalized, whatever it is. CrossPolitic's promotion code. And they'll take good care of you. Like they're They're involved in our conference down in Fort Worth. They're fantastic, really excited.
Good people.
And their infrastructure. Like I want to use Christian infrastructure who won't cancel me.
Yeah.
We've gone through that with YouTube, all that stuff. So
Can I
go ahead. Yeah.
I'm not done with the Kamala thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm still a little fed up.
Uh-huh.
And here's why. I was thinking about this while you're reading. Remember when Trump in the debate with, was it Biden the first time, talked about black jobs?
Yeah, and they all made fun of him.
And I remember that. Yeah. And there's blackjobs.com, by the way. There's blackjobs.
Grab that URL.
Yeah. No, it's been there.
Oh,
it's been there for a while. And so you can go check that out. But it was really interesting because
Can I apply there?
Sure, I guess so.
I should try.
I'm sure.
I should try to see.
Yeah. But when he said that comment, everybody flipped out and lost their mind. It's like, what's a black job? And you saw everybody in the community, Trump talking about black jobs.
Yeah.
Now here comes Kamala, who makes it a part of her policy. Not talking about, hey, they're taking black jobs away and not worry about jobs. Not that. Somebody who's trying to make absolute like black policy.
Yeah.
Right. For black men.
Yeah.
Leaving black women out, I guess.
Yeah.
And is sitting up here saying, hey, I'm going to give you a black loan.
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of the black
educational
cryptocurrency. I'm going to make sure black marijuana,
black
healthcare, black education. And all of a sudden, and nobody is flipping out about this. Like Trump just talked about the idea there's black jobs. There are black jobs. I don't know what we're talking about. Of course. Yeah. We know that.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about black barbers. There's a black job. but seriously, and then
honestly, only black barbers can cut black men's hair.
That's not true. The Cuban barbers be killing it.
They got
it.
They
They crispy with
it. They got it.
They
wow. They cut those edges,
bro. But it's just so funny. Nobody's giving this the same sort of attention, and this is far more egregious.
Yeah.
If you thought what Trump said was egregious, and I really didn't find it that egregious, I just thought it was like, okay,
yeah,
that wasn't the way that communicates now. Like that's kind of troubling for other people to hear, but I know what you mean by it, so it's not a really big deal.
Yeah.
But this takes what he does, and
really
this is super insulting in every way. That's anyway, good. I probably have a few more things to say about that because I don't like it.
Yeah. So here's one of his latest ads directed toward Kamala.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
Kamala even supports letting biological men compete against our girls in their sports. Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
You know, this is interesting. I wonder, for those people who are actually thinking about, like, neither one of these people are my guys at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to maybe think about your vote a little differently in this case. And I've been trying to work through this myself. You think about the person who you really want to deal with at the end of the day.
Right.
Not the person who you feel like I'm going to support everything they're doing. I'm going to be completely behind them 100%. Who do you have a chance of actually influencing or the better to fight with, and who will probably listen to you and engage with you? There is no way of Kamala Harris, like everything that's going on with the trans movement, everything that's going on with the gay, all that stuff there, she is telling you right now she is not supportive of black families.
Yeah.
Or any family for that matter.
Well, her policies will take their freedoms away. The more the government's involved in their lives, the less freedoms they have.
Less freedom you're going to have.
Yeah.
And so at least like I did watch this thing with Trump. He was talking, I can't remember who he was talking to. It might have been on the Bloomberg interview. And he had said, like, we don't want any transgender surgeries on children apart from parental allowance or agreement or something like that. Everybody's like, whoa, hey, we don't even want it, period. Right? Like that's mutilation. We don't want that. I don't care if parents consign to it or not, right? But I think Trump might have misspoke. But even so, I'm way more willing to have those fights with Trump because I know I'm not going to have an ear. I know I'm not going to be able to deal with the kind of policies that she puts in place. And I know they're going to be destructive. There's no way to engage with those at all.
Yeah. Well, and think about it. Trump on Amendment 4 in Florida said he wasn't going to vote for it. And then within like 48 hours, 24 hours maybe, he changed his tune because all these conservatives are on Twitter were like, oh my goodness, you need to vote for that. You need to come out, is it vote against it? You need to vote against it. You don't want Amendment 4 to pass. And he was originally going to say he's going to support it and he need to vote against it.
Unfortunately, that's like the blessing and the curse of a populist movement.
I know.
Right? Like, if you have a populist movement, it's like, well, the majority of us are pushing you, and you're like, well, you push that way. It's not principled. Like that's one of the things I don't think people should understand is like we're not in the moment of a principled movements. These are all this is a whole populist moment. And everybody in one way is either trying to destroy the institutions that are there or reform the institutions that are there. And some of them need a little bit of both. Some of them need reform and some other institutions need to be destroyed.
And so here's actually a clip of this. We'll just call him, he's a black man in the military and under Kamala's military, talking about the transing of the military. And it's a black dude. Just let me warn you, this is a black dude.
The military be so silly with their rules. Like, why did I just get in trouble for having a pink lunchbox? And then I got in trouble for wearing lip gloss. Yeah. And God forbid I wear some mascara. Oh, they be so mad. God forbid I wear mascara.
Why'd you do that to me?
I don't want that dude defending me.
What? Why did you?
That dude can't defend me.
I don't even want to see that clip.
I know.
I didn't need to see that, Gabe.
It's pretty bad.
I didn't need to see that.
I'm sorry. I don't know what to say about that clip.
You're sorry. That's what you say.
It speaks for itself.
Everybody, Gabe wants to say something. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have played you the clip.
Sorry.
This is my. I know that we need to see things like this, but I don't. If I can help it, I don't want to promote anyway that stuff. I can talk about it, but anytime I don't. Yeah.
But it's really funny that Kamala is actually fighting for the men's vote right now. It's obvious. I mean, she's doing commercials around it. What's it? Tim Walz is like going hunting. He walked out of Cabela's with brand new hunting clothes on and went hunting. He's trying to load his shotgun. He can't even load his shotgun well, and but they're really going after men. In fact, when Tim Walz first got nominated, you remember like within like the first week they're releasing videos about how he wears flannel and just like they were so intentional about it. It was odd. It was awkward. And what they're trying to do, they're trying to cast Tim as like a man's man, a high school football coach, teacher, all that stuff. And then, they're more than fine with this kind of military that they're developing.
One of the things I think is really important to talk about is that there's a real big split here. It's not a split over, man and woman, over black and white, and over anything else we're trying to make it. It's a split over the unity of idea of truth and righteousness and good versus evil.
And Trump ain't even on that very well.
This is a split over family too, because a family is the most powerful unit inside of all of politics. So if you can split fathers and daughters, sons and mothers, man and wife, husband and wife, if you can split all that up, then you can try and manipulate who you want to create a whole new power structure.
Right.
And I'm saying that to say that when men are seeing the desperate cry, particularly coming from the left, to try and get your attention to vote for them, you need to not just think about, because they probably don't have most of the men who we talk to. They don't have them.
Yeah.
But one of the things you better do is you better make sure your family is secure.
That's right.
You need to go and make sure, because
they want a wedge. They want a wedge in your family.
One of the first things that God gave the man the responsibility to do was to make sure that he took care of his family.
That's right.
That he protected and guarded, right? That was part of his responsibility. And when I see their desperate plea for men, I'm thinking, and trying to separate men and women, I'm thinking, let me just go make sure my stuff's intact.
Yeah.
Let me go make sure that all my I's are dotted, my T's are crossed, and everything in my family and everybody's loved and nurtured and taken care of, and reminded who they belong to and whose they belong. Right. I want to make sure that I have everything, because men don't lose their families.
Right.
That's what it means to be a man. That's what it means to be a man. And everybody's forgetting that part.
Yeah.
What it means to be a man is that keep your wife.
Yeah.
You love her, the wife of your youth, forever until you die. You keep your kids, and you offer up God, hit this godly seed in which he said it belongs to him, and you're able to do that. And so when I see this kind of desperate appeal, I'm thinking like, oh my goodness, they're coming for our kids. They're coming for my wife. I want to make sure those areas are secure.
And you think politicians, and I think this is a temptation in democracy, is that they want segments. So I can go to the men and talk to the men about their issues.
Yes.
I can go to the black, community and talk about their issues, go preach in their churches, campaign in their churches. I can go to, the LGBT groups on college campus. Like that way you can speak to those groups and tell them whatever they want to hear, but they don't really kind of pay attention to how you're speaking to other groups.
Well, and that's true, as well as that typically the family and the way that God has set up the world, there's only a few institutions you can go to reach them.
Yeah.
Right. There's not a whole, you got to go to family. There's only really two, it's business and church.
Yeah.
Right. But if you can split those groups up into different interests.
School.
Well, yeah. That's
public school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. School. Yeah. They're not supposed to, but yeah,
but,
you're right.
But they don't need to.
But
they
you know
control
what,
the schools. So
I'll
don't need to
take
be in
that.
there. Yeah.
But I guess I think of the school as a family. So
yeah,
I think of it that way.
Right.
But you're right. But if you can split those up into different interests and different interest groups, now you have a different message to target people on that, oh, I can't get to your kids directly through dad.
Right.
But if I go to their government schools and say, we're going to create lunches and field trips and chocolate milk for everybody, and we don't care if you ever have to pay it back. And if you're black, we'll give you 2 chocolate milk.
Yeah. Or a black loan.
Right. Right. Exactly. And so you get to split up these groups, and now you actually can tear down the structures that were originally there.
Right.
And you don't have to, because you're not going to appeal to a church and say, hey, I'm here to destroy your families.
Right.
I'm for transgender surgeries.
Right. And I want you to pay for it.
And I want you to pay for it. No, it's not working.
So don't forget the video that we played at the very beginning that Kamala put together for targeting men.
Yeah.
Well, here's a recent video that Trump put together, and he had, I don't think it's ran on the air at all. It's not, I don't think, filmed that well or scripted that well, but he played this at his rally, but notice the contrast.
You little scumbag! I got your name! I got your ass! You will not laugh! You will not cry! You will learn by the number!
Happy Pride. Happy Pride Month. And actually, let's declare it a summer of pride.
So you're a killer? Sir, yes, sir! Let me see your war face! Sir, you got a war face? Ah! That's a war face! Now let me see your war face! Ah! Bullshit! You didn't convince me! Let me see your real war face! Ah!
Oh, wow.
You will be a weapon. You will be a minister of death, praying for war. But until that day, you are cute. You are the lowest form of life on earth. You are not even human fucking beings. You are nothing but unorganized, grabastic pieces of entity. I'm working for Uncle Sam. I'm working for Uncle Sam. Let me know just who I am. Let me know just who I am. 1, 2, 3, 4, United States Marine Corps. 1, 2, 3, 4, United States Marine Corps.
A huge contrast on how Trump is going after the men and how Kamala is going after the men. Kamala is creating like some sort of metrosexual kind of campaign towards men. Trump's just like, hey, you want to die for the country? Like, that's what
I'll give you your opportunity.
We're going to make America great again, and you're going to help.
But you know what? It really helps when you have the contrast to a man putting on makeup and wearing a wig, and it's like this is immediate like visceral
taking a
reaction.
pink lunchbox into the military.
I mean, there's some good marketing that's there. You know, the thing though that I was thinking about with both of these ads is we get a good and strong military because we have good and strong families.
Yeah.
The military points and directs the materials that the parents have already hardened.
Mm-hmm.
And when the parents have hardened their children around the things that they're supposed to love and protect and fight for,
right?
Like when mom's apple pie is what's under threat.
Yeah.
When the love of your sister being protected and your brothers and your fathers, like when that's under threat, I'm going to rise to the occasion. And I've been taught to love these things so much that I'll fight hard to protect them. Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things too, is like our military is only good because we have good families.
Right.
And when we don't have the kind of families, the replacement of the people that we had before, like when we don't have that, we're not going to fill it with anything better.
The best military you're going to get is in a virtuous society.
That's right.
When you know that you're fighting for good and you're fighting against evil and you're fighting for a society that loves good, loves the family, loves which is, truth, beauty, and goodness, versus, you're going to the military and you're going to fight for or with a transgender person who can't even hop out of the foxhole, transgender person, or you're going to fight for a military where Biden, the commander chief, is going to throw you under the bus when you exit out of Afghan. Like you are not working. You are not, a military is not going to thrive under society that is not built on truth, beauty, and goodness.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's
really
the
something
administration that has been created under Biden.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get into beer and psalms. This is since Toby's not here, I get the luxury of doing the psalm today, and I'm gonna make sure Toby stays with the psalms. I'm in the psalms. I'm doing a real psalm.
Yeah,
Toby's
do
okay.
psalms
He's kind of been
sometimes.
playing around with categories a little
He's
bit.
not
for
gonna
me.
watch this show, so you can talk all the trash
So-
you want to about him.
I got a little Jameson today to kind of help with my throat. Hopefully,
Wait, hold
I
on.
can make through it.
You can't get mad at Toby for not doing psalms and beer and
Beer
psalms,
psalms.
and then you're gonna sit up here
Scotch
and do
and psalms.
Jameson.
I'm stepping it up.
So this is
Yeah.
not a beer and psalm. This is a Scotch and psalms.
Yeah,
okay,
that's right.
Let's
All
just
right,
make
all
sure
right.
we clear that
All
up.
right, Psalm 78. Bear with me. This is like 72 verses. Hang on. Hang in there tight. This is a contemplation of Asaph. Give ear, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide from their children, telling to the generations to come and praise the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works that he has done. For he has established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make known to their children, that the generation to come might know them. The children who would be born, that they might arise and declare to them and to their children, that they may set their God and their hope in God and not forget the works of their God, but keep his commandments and may not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation. I just want to point out here, there was 4 generations just mentioned above. A stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that did not set its heart aright and whose spirit was not faithful to God. The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the day of battle. They did not keep the covenant of God. They refused to walk in his laws and forget his words and his words that he had shown them. Marvelous things he did in the sight of their fathers in the land of Egypt and the field of Zoan. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through. He made the waters stand up like a heap. And the daytime also he led them with a cloud. And all the night with a light of fire. He split the rocks in the wilderness. Great, I love that. He split the rocks in the wilderness and gave them drink in abundance like the depths. He also brought streams out of the rock and caused waters to run down like rivers. But they sinned even more against him by rebelling against the Most High in the wilderness. And they tested God in their heart by asking for the food of their fancy. Yes, they spoke against God. They said, can God prepare a table in the wilderness? Behold, he struck the rock, so the waters gushed out and the streams overflowed. Then they also said, can he give bread also? Can he provide meat for his people? Therefore the Lord heard this and was furious. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came against Israel, because they did not believe God and did not trust his salvation. And yet he had commanded the clouds above and opened the doors of heaven. He rained down the manna on them to eat, and given them of the bread of heaven. Men ate angels' food. He sent them food to the full. He caused an east wind to blow in the heavens, and by his power he brought the south wind. He also rained meat on them like dust, feathered fowl like the sand of the seas, and he let them fall into the midst of their camp, all around their dwellings. So they ate and were filled, for he gave them their own desire. They were not deprived of their craving. But while their food was still in their mouths, the wrath of God came against them and slew the stoutest of them and struck down the choice of men of Israel. In spite of all this, they sinned and did not believe his wondrous works. Therefore, their days he consumed in futility, and their years in fear. When he slew them, they sought him, and they returned and sought earnestly for God. And they remembered that God was their rock, and the Most High God their Redeemer. Nevertheless, they flattered him in their mouth, and they lied to him with their tongue, for their heart was not steadfast with him, nor were they faithful in his covenant. But he, being full of compassion, forgave their iniquity, and did not destroy them. Yes, many a time he returned to his anger. Many a time he turned his anger away, and did not stir up all his wrath. And he remembered that they were but flesh, a breath that passes away and does not come again. How often they provoked him in the wilderness and grieved him in the desert. Yes, again and again they tempted God and limited the Holy One of Israel. They did not remember his power, the day when he redeemed them from the enemy, and when he worked his signs in Egypt and his wonders in the field of Zoan, turned their rivers into blood, their streams that they could not drink. Yet he sent swarms of flies among them, which devoured them, frogs which destroyed them. He also gave their crops to the caterpillar, and their labor to the locust. He destroyed their vines in hell, and their sycamore trees with frost. He also gave up their cattle to hell, and their flock to fiery lightning. He cast them in the fierceness of his anger, wrath, indignation, and trouble, by sending angels of destruction among them. He made a path for his anger. He did not spare their soul from death, but gave their life over to the plague and destroyed all the firstborn in Egypt, the first of their strength, and the tents of Ham. But he made his own people forth like sheep, and guided them in the wilderness like a flock. And he led them on safely, so that they did not fear. But the sea overwhelmed their enemies, and he brought them to his holy border, the mountain, which is his right hand had acquired. He also drove out the nations before them, allotted them an inheritance by survey, and made the tribes of Israel dwell in their tents. Yet they tested and provoked the Most High God, and did not keep his testimonies, but turned back and acted unfaithfully like their fathers. They were turned aside like a deceitful bow, for they provoked him to anger with their high places, and moved him to jealousy with their carved images. When God heard this, he was furious, and greatly abhorred Israel, so that he forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent he had placed among them, and delivered his strength into captivity, and his glory into the enemy's hands. He also gave his people over to the sword, and was furious with his inheritance. The fire consumed their young men, and the maidens were not given in marriage. Their priests fell by the sword, and their widows made no lamentation. Then the Lord awoke from his sleep, like a mighty man who shouts because of wine. And he beat back his enemies. He put them to a perpetual reproach. Moreover, he rejected the tent of Joseph, and did not choose the tribes of Ephraim, but chose the tribe of Judah, Mount Zion, which he loved. And he built the sanctuary like the heights, like the earth, which he has established forever. He also chose David his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds, from following the ewes that had young brought to him, to shepherd Jacob his people, and Israel his inheritance. So he shepherded them according to the integrity of his heart, and guided them by the skillfulness of his hand. That's Psalm 72. It's a long psalm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different directions we can take this psalm. It's 72 verses. There's all sorts of intertwining narratives and messages we could draw out of this. But first, this psalm is written by Asaph. Asaph was the chief of the Levites, a singer and a seer in David's court. So some sort of possibly prophet in David's court, and was the son of Berechiah of the tribe of Levi. As nations work towards revolution by tearing down memorials, think of Christopher Columbus, and forgetting or rewriting history, Christians work towards reformation and revival by passing down to our children memorials. I'm going to take a sip here while my monitor.
Pastor Toby doesn't do that.
My
I
voice,
just want you to know that.
my voice is scratchy. So memorials. Let me back that up because I just messed it up. So we work towards reformation by passing down to our children memorials of God's faithfulness to us and building places of right worship. When a nation goes through reformation and revival, we absolutely reject the sins that characterize our nation. When a nation goes through revolution, that nation rejects the good things that built that nation. This is why in America, Columbus Day is now Indigenous Peoples Day. This is why men can now go into women's bathrooms, and why we have peaceful pro-life protesters going to jail for trying to prevent the murder of the unborn. We in America have forgotten God. We in America are going through, or potentially going through, some sort of revolution. This psalm is a reminder of what it looks like to rebel against God. Not just once, but over and over again. If that's one thread you picked up in the psalm, is there's multiple rebellings that Asaph covers in the psalm. In this psalm, God tells us that we are not to conceal praises to our Lord, but we are to tell of his goodness towards us and to our children. Not only should we teach our children about his goodness, but as we see in verse 6, that the generation to come might know, even the children yet to be born, that their children's children will find out about the goodness of God. Asaph encourages 4 generations to not have short memories of God's goodness, and to not be like their fathers, who were stubborn, rebellious, and did not prepare its heart, nor whose spirit was not faithful to God. Asaph goes on to list all the ways their fathers forgot God's deeds. They forgot God's miracles. his wonders, and how he divided the sea, how he made the water stand still like a heap, like a wall, like a heap, how God split rocks for them in the wilderness and caused waters to run down like rivers in the wilderness. What was Israel's response to all this deliverance and all this blessing? They tested God. Can God prepare a table in the wilderness, they asked? So God gave them meat and water. They tested him again. Can God prepare bread for us? So God rained angel cake down from heaven, or bread that angels eat. I like to call it angel cake. Yet it was only when God caused the meat to turn rotten and killed some of the Israelites did Israel repent, but only temporarily. They quickly again forgot God. Then they lied to him, and their heart was not steadfast towards him. And then lastly, their worship became corrupt. Do you see a pattern here in this psalm? I count 3 generations of rebellion in this psalm. At the beginning, David was talking to 4 generations. Tell this to your children, and then tell this to your children, so that their children will know too. But 3 generations of rebellion in the psalm. My head's a little cold. Maybe it was 4 too. And in verse 57, it says, for this 3rd generation, that after God drove out the nations before them, Israel tempted God again, rebelled, and did not keep his testimonies. Verse 57. If you want revolution, then stop discipling your children's children, not just your children, but your children's children, to remember God's goodness. Inculcate short memories, and you'll get revolution. Let them sit in front of an iPad instead of a dinner table, you'll get revolution. If you want revolution in your culture, in America, inculcate short memories. Remember the 10 Commandments that God curses to the 3rd and 4th generation. At the end of the psalm, it ends with the promise that God is going to send a Davidic king to shepherd his people according to the integrity of his heart. For all of Israel's history of peaks and troughs, of faithfulness and rebellion, and of all the church peaks and troughs and faithfulness and rebellion, God does not forget his mercy. Although we forget him, God sends Jesus, his son. He sends the Davidic king as our shepherd to die for our bad memories, for our obstinate rebellion, for our inability to disciple our children's children's children. And in his infinite mercy, he turns our hearts around, prepares a table in the presence of his enemies, showers manna from heaven upon us, guides us back into his light so that we will never forget him again. Cheers.
Cheers to the king. Just so you know, Pastor Toby was watching, so
did he get in there?
Yeah, he saw, he was looking, he was paying attention.
Oh,
so.
no.
You're supposed to be on vacation, man.
No, man.
So if you're single,
I'm
get
embarrassed
married.
he heard my psalm.
If you're married, have you some kids. If you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is CrossPolitic.
Wanted. Young men to rebuild Western civilization. Must be unafraid of pain, blisters, intellectual rigor, and a lifetime of long shifts with swords and shovels, digging ditches, repelling invaders, and reading stacks of books taller than their fathers. Must be impervious to manipulative women of all sorts, giggling virgins, cyber skanks, and even full cauldrons of Karens or hand-wringing clergy, but always seeking to hear and heed the words of Lady Wisdom. Immune to the leadership of hypocrites and LARPing online masculinitods, unaffected by abusive authorities, petty professors, and all brokers of official respectability. Willing to hoist the Jolly Roger and Johnny Cash's favorite finger whenever faced with idolatry. Long-suffering joy and determination required. Must be willing to dwell among the tombs and graves of the long dead, seeking truths that cannot die. Exhaustion guaranteed. Conflict guaranteed. Mortality guaranteed. New St. Andrews College. Liberal arts for the undaunted.